David's coming. She's gonna grab the awards.
Yeah, she's very good.
Tell me your pain. I'm not a very good pain.
It's not, he was very, like, as soon as, and I wouldn't even say stop because it's painful. He would just be like, ooh, I felt you jerk. We're done. We're not going to do that one anymore. So,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the regular city council meeting for the city of Sierra Vista for July 13th, 2017. Mrs. Adams, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Rick Mueller,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Alicia Ash,
Present.
Councilmember Gwen Calhoun,
Present.
Councilmember Bob Blanchard,
Here?
Councilmember Rachel Gray,
Present.
Councilmember Craig Mount,
Here.
Councilmember Christine Wolf.
present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. We'll start tonight, as usual, with the invocation and the pledge. The invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Mark Perry of the Sierra Vista Evangelical Lutheran Church, and will be immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Ash. Please rise.
Thank you. I invite you to pray or meditate with me as you would see fit. Almighty God, in this week following Independence Day, we give thanks for the freedom we have in this great country, for self-government through our elected and appointed officials. We thank you for the mayor, the members of this city council, their support staff, and the volunteers, for their willingness to serve for the good of all and for the sacrifices they make in order to do so. Keep them healthy, strong, and fulfilled in their vocations, and may this summer season provide opportunities for rest and renewal. We invoke your blessing upon this evening's meeting. May your divine sense of justice, compassion, and wisdom guide the deliberations and decisions of this council. Increase civil discourse among all who govern. Bless Sierra Vista and make it a place of security and well-being for all people, regardless of economic status, ethnicity, gender, or life circumstance. Give us all grace to work for a city where our neighborhoods remain vibrant and whole, where the lost and forgotten among us are supported, and where education and the arts flourish. Make the diverse fabric of Sierra Vista a delight to all who live and visit here, and a strong bond that unites its citizens around common goals for the good of all. We pray this in your holy and loving name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you, Pastor Perry, and thank you, Ms. Ash. We now go to item number 1, acceptance of the agenda. Mr. Blanchard.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the agenda for the regular city council meeting of June 22nd, 2017 be approved.
Second.
Wait,
No, it should be July 13th.
No, it's June, the June meeting is what we're talking about. The agenda for today's meeting should be July
Yes.
13th.
13th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Somehow we got it.
2017. Yeah, it's wrong on mine as well.
Yep.
Maria just gave me the look. Okay. Any other than the change in the date on the document? Is there any other changes to the?
None.
Any other changes? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to awards and presentations. We're going to start tonight with recognizing the library and leisure service employees. And the way this is going to work is I'll move up front and grab the microphone. And Ms. Yarborough is going to make announcements. When announcements come up, come on up, stay up so we get a picture afterwards with Ms. Yarborough. Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So starting with our library staff, our part-time library employee of the year runner-up this year was Sam Yang, a library assistant. We had multiple patrons comment about how helpful and pleasant Sam is to work with. People notice that he's not just nice because it's his job, but because he actually wants to help and is eager to do so. We're sorry to be losing him later this month, but it's for the excellent reason of returning to college, and so we, of course, wish him the very best. Our part-time library employee of the year this year is Angelina Goodman, a library assistant. Angelina began at the library as a page not too long ago, but she was quickly promoted to a library assistant when others particularly noticed her initiative and her willingness to learn about other aspects of the library and its operations. Her outstanding work ethic was mentioned, and her courtesy and professionalism are much appreciated. Thanks, Angelina. Our full-time Library Employee of the Year runner-up this year is Sierra Burrill-Lash, our Youth Services Librarian. Sierra's library programs continue to be top-notch, and through a grant application this year, she'll be bringing mobile makerspaces to not just our community, but underserved children in Hereford and Palominas. Youth programs have continued to grow under her leadership, and everyone notices how very hardworking and always positive she is. Thank you, Sierra. And our full-time Library Employee of the Year this year is Tammy Clark, our library technician. So Tammy works in this giant room in the back of the library all by herself with occasional volunteers, away from the public eye and most staff. But as our cataloger, nobody would know the library had anything if it wasn't for Tammy. But even with that incredibly important job, Tammy does far more than catalog loads and loads and loads of materials. Tammy has worked exceptionally hard to make not just cataloging more efficient, but other library processes as well. She found glitches in our catalog and made sure they were fixed. She does webinars and research on library processes on her own and doesn't hesitate to volunteer for other tasks like backing up interlibrary loan. She's truly a library MVP, and we're a better library for having her on our team. Thanks, Tammy. Moving over to leisure, our part-time leisure employee of the year runner-up this year is Matthew O'Hario, a part-time maintenance worker. Matt's been described as very quiet, but a very hard worker who can be trusted to always be reliable and handle difficult customers with ease. His nominations all mention what an asset he is to the department. Thanks, Matt. Our part-time leisure employee of the year this year is Jordan Struess, a lifeguard. I was impressed by the really meaningful comments in Jordan's nominations. They spoke about her willingness to volunteer for additional tasks, her excellent customer service and the time she goes above and beyond, and how much pride she takes in her job. We're really fortunate to have somebody like Jordan on our team. Our full-time leisure employee of the year runner-up this year is Marita Helbig, our instruction and therapeutic recreation coordinator. And Marita has a big job with managing therapeutic rec and instruction classes for the department. Her nominations mentioned how she goes out of her way to make sure everything is well organized, is respectful to her staff, and what a great job she does communicating and keeping everyone informed. Her job requires a ton of detail orientation, especially with new requirements from DES every year, and she handles it all exceptionally well. Thanks, Marita. And our full-time leisure employee of the year this year is Mary Stryker, our aquatics coordinator. And I say every year to the staff that this recognition isn't won by the number of nominations or votes, but when somebody receives 11 nominations, not just from their own staff, but outside their division, you tend to pay attention. Mary has always impressed me with her true passion for what she does. Even when she's a little down from working long hours, she's enthusiastic about how tired she is. Her nominations mentioned her joy, her bubbly demeanor, how she brightens the atmosphere around her, welcomes everyone to the Cove, her incredible work ethic, what an excellent boss she is, whom her staff respect, and all of the amazing new programs she has brought to the Cove. Thank you for all of your incredible work this year, Mary.
And while the boss lady comes up here for the picture, we kind of bunch together. I just want to say, for the folks out there in TV land, everybody was recognized at a dinner recently, so they had an opportunity to say, we had an opportunity to say thank you by taking them out and sharing a meal. We also want to say these are all great folks that work with us on a day-to-day basis. We really appreciate them. There are a lot of interface with the people of the city, and we're very proud of the Leisure and Library Services branch. So let's get the picture.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
We do have one more set of awards here, and I asked Mr. Felix and anybody from your staff that you want to have come up here with you. This is an annual event here in the city of Sierra Vista. How many times have we taken this one?
This is the 6th time in a row.
Okay, 6th time in a row. This is from the Government Finance Officers Association, and it's the award for outstanding achievement in popular annual reporting, the CAPFR, presented to the city of Sierra Vista, Arizona, for its financial report for the fiscal year ending 2016, and signed by the director. David, congratulations. I know you do great work. And hang on, we got one more. And how many years have we gotten the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting?
This is the 29th year in a row.
29th year in a row. So that's excellent. Again, this is from the Government Finance Association, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, presented to the city of Sierra Vista, Arizona, for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year that ended in June 30, 2016. And I will mention to you guys that even though we almost come to expect this, not everybody receives these awards, and there are very high standards to be able to meet these awards. The fact that we've done this one for 29 years, almost 30, it says something about the way the city handles its finances and reports to the public on its financial acumen. So, David, I want to congratulate you and your entire staff. Anything else?
Well, I want to, of course, thank the staff for the work that they do, and also thank Judy and the PAO department who helped make the popular annual financial report, which both of them are available on our website. The CAFR is accounting speak, and the PAFR, the popular, is so that the general public can understand it. You can read and see where your taxes come in and where they go. So they're available on the website, and special thanks again to the PA office for helping make it from accounting speak to regular English.
Thank you, David. Thanks. Congratulations. We'll now move to the city manager's report. Mr. Patucci.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. We have 2 upcoming work sessions. The first one is Monday, the 17th of July, starting at 2:30 p.m., so note the time change from the usual 3 p.m. here in the council chambers. The first part of it will be a bond presentation from our financial consultant, Mr. Tom Hocking, regarding the refinancing of 3 outstanding bonds that we have out there. And I've noticed, as I mentioned Tuesday, that bids were coming in on that, and we have already received a number of bids. So I look forward to very competitive interest rates from that. Also, on that day, there will be a joint city council and Cochise County Board of Supervisors work session with regards to the Southeast Arizona Communications Center, the joint dispatch center that we've been working on for so long. We're going to be presenting to you the intergovernmental agreement that has been struck and agreed to at the staff level and is now moving to the elected bodies for their questions and then ultimately the approval later on this summer. And then on the 25th of July, 3 p.m., we're going to be holding our normal work session at 3 p.m. here in the council chambers. Just a few projects tonight. First, the Discovery Garden Amphitheater at the Sierra Vista Library has been awarded to KNG in the amount of just shy of $40,000. And this is a really great project and is being funded out of donation funds. So really, really good thing. The Coronado Widening Project, as most folks see, is almost complete. Just a few finishing touches there, and we hope to have that done by next week. And then the new Sierra Vista Monument welcoming sign on the highway. A lot of people have been noticing, and we've been getting a lot of great comments about that. And then the lighting, solar lighting will be installed, and that project will then be complete. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mayor Mueller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patucci. Any questions for Mr. Patucci on his report? The only question I've got, Chuck, is when are we going to see the read-ahead packet for the joint meeting with the county?
Maria will be sending that out to you in the morning.
Okay. All right. Good. Anything else from Mr. Patucci? Thank you, Mr. Patucci. We now move on to the public hearing items. Item number 2, Mrs. Wolf.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Resolution 2017-054, amending Chapter 94, Parks and Recreation, and declaring a 30-day public record be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Yarborough, may we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chapter 94 of the City Code of Ordinances covers the use of parks and recreational activities within those parks. This ordinance was last reviewed and updated about 4 years ago in 2013. And the reasons for the proposed changes at this time are a few. The Parks and Recreation Commission decided to begin reviewing the ordinance again about last summer, and then our staff team took a look at the latest changes in the ordinance and decided to recommend a few additional changes. Beginning with the definition of smoking as updated in the proposed changes to match the definition of the Smoke-Free Arizona Act, and the term vapor product was also added. And this reflects the Park and Recreation Commission's desire to recommend a ban of smoking and vaping within 50 feet of sports fields and playgrounds in all parks. There were a few reasons for their consideration of this proposal. Fort Huachuca began significantly reducing smoking areas on post as a priority in Army-wide health improvement initiatives last year. And so the Parks and Recreation Commission considered that information along with a survey that was released last fall. The survey was advertised through Facebook in September and October. The survey was shared by email newsletter. It was mentioned on the radio. It was seen by just over 4,000 people. There were 139 responses. 94 of the responses favored banning smoking at all parks. 104 supported banning smoking and vaping at sports fields. And upon considering this information, but realizing that enforcement of a complete smoking ban in parks would be very difficult to enforce, the commission decided to recommend a ban of just smoking at sports fields and playgrounds. The definition of malt beverages was updated and replaced with a definition of spirituous liquor, which is consistent with Arizona Liquor Board's definition of such. Upon review, staff realized that the restriction currently in place on malt beverages did not cover all alcoholic beverages. And so the update to the term spirituous liquor will now cover a restriction of all alcoholic beverages in our parks. A definition for mobile food vendors was added, an update made to the section on commercial and vending activities to allow mobile food vendors to operate outside of a community event or as part of a specific agreement, such as with the farmers market. There have been multiple requests by mobile food vendors over the past few years, specifically to operate in the evenings near sports fields when we have adult leagues operating, and outside of any youth sports leagues that operate a concession stand for fundraising activities. And so this change would allow staff to establish a permitting process where food vendors could be allowed to operate under very specific circumstances with specific guidelines. There was already a prohibition on model aircraft in the current ordinance, and so that definition of model aircraft was updated to match the FAA definition of unmanned aircraft. The state law prohibits most restrictions of the use of unmanned aircraft, but municipalities are allowed to restrict private use in parks if a space exists already for unmanned aircraft use, and we have that in Bolin Airfield, so we are following the law with that change. And then the prohibition of parking except in marked spaces only was moved from park uses to motor vehicles to combine all motor vehicle issues under one section. And then the penalty was changed to where any person who violates the prohibitions of the motor vehicle section could be assessed a civil traffic offense. That makes traffic violations in our parks more enforceable and addresses a specific issue as well that has grown over the past few years of people parking vehicles around the reservable ramadas, damaging irrigation and grass and so on. Those are the major changes in the ordinance. The Park and Recreation Commission reviewed all changes to this ordinance at its meeting on June 20th and recommended their approval. I'd welcome any further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Yarborough. Before we proceed to council, I want to mention this is a public hearing item. I have no people that have requested to discuss this evening. If there's anybody out there, now's your shot. I don't see anybody out there, so I'll close this to the meeting. I will say that when we declare it a 30-day public record, you still have 30 days to come in and make comments on the changes as well. Any comments or questions to council? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did get some comments back already from the public. One of the comments that I got back, and it's I don't know the details of it, but I guess I'll turn it into a question, was when we put this ordinance into place, I'll start with the city vehicles, or excuse me, with vehicles on the park. Does that also include city vehicles? For example, the person brought up that at Tompkins Park, when they had the meet and greet, that there were quite a few city vehicles parked on the grass for that event. They're doing the same thing that the citizens do, which is, I guess, moving stuff on and off, et cetera. So are city vehicles also, with the exception of emergency vehicles
And maintenance vehicles.
and maintenance vehicles, are the sedans and all that other stuff also prohibited from just driving around on the park grass?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, city vehicles in the regular work are exempted, and that's been in the ordinance for quite some time. So if they are doing their normal daily work, they are allowed to drive on the grass.
Okay. The other one deals with alcohol. So the question being, right now, there's a certain prohibition, for lack of better words, for a specific type. The thought of if somebody rents out a gazebo, does a barbecue, has a party, they would now no longer be able to have any sort of adult beverages that go along with that party or that gazebo or whatever it is that they're doing. Would that be true?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Mount, that is not the case. What this occurs to, the department still issues beer permits. So people will still be allowed to get a beer permit for their private event, private party. What this means is that basically there was a loophole where before, nobody could go into the park and drink malt beverages at any time. However, because we only specified malt beverages, technically somebody could walk into the park and drink anything else that contained alcohol and be allowed. So what this does is this prevents any kind of alcohol consumption in the park at any time unless the person has a permit for the use.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That makes me want to ask, first of all, I didn't know you needed a permit to drink beer in the park at any time. I never thought about that.
In conjunction with a party. Somebody can't get a permit and sit in the middle of the park and drink a six-pack.
Just to drink a beer. Okay. Oh, darn. So how do people know that, other than is that written on the rules that are posted as you go into the park, or how would you know?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Calhoun, when somebody makes a park reservation, they're asked if they need a beer permit.
So generally then, only if you have a ramada, if you're renting park space for a get-together, you would get a permit. If you're just going to gather at the park and have a picnic and have spirituous liquids, you still should have a permit. Is that correct?
You need a reservation to go with the permit.
So just to use the park, you need a reservation for a picnic? Is that?
You could go in and just gather and have a picnic. You do have to pay for a permit, though. It has a fee. So we really don't have the circumstance where somebody comes in to pay for a beer permit but doesn't make a reservation for the space.
I see. Okay. That's some things I'd never thought about before until you brought that up.
So,
Thank you.
So during softball season, our favorite time of year, and everybody shows up. We had a softball team. Nobody's allowed to go out there and drink beer and watch the games and do all that stuff.
Without a permit.
Is that?
They get permits.
Okay. All right. Okay.
They should get permits. Okay. Anything on this side? Anybody on this side? Any other further questions? Thank you, Mrs. Yarborough. Again, this is for a 30-day public record. So I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to item number 3. Mrs. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2017-055, identifying projects proposed for the 2017 CDBG Annual Action Plan, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and we'll get the staff report from Ms. Thornton.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. And this is a public hearing, and I do know we have 3 people here to talk with you. Jay Hamright, Boys and Girls Club. And I don't know how much you have to say, but we'll go. Delia Demery, Dormy from the Easter Hill Blakes Foundation, and John Williams. The city is nothing but we do a lot of public hearings. We make sure that our citizens, the city council makes sure our citizens get a say in this. This is, in fact, the second meeting we're having right now. We started the CDBG year with a presentation to council in January. We held 2 public hearings, a focus group. In the months of into February, 1st of March, we held a public hearing March 9th. Then we held another work session where all the programs and projects that were requested were submitted to council. And they talked it over, made a suggestion on how it would be, but we never voted on it. We were waiting until we were given our final total. We ended up getting $236,107, which we thought we might get $200,000. So we have some extra money in there to spend. During the time that we had the open application period, we received applications from the Easter Hill Blakes Foundation, and they requested some construction for composite for their playground and playground coverings that they do. And Delia will talk about that. She is aware that the preliminary projects have been picked, but they were unable to come to the first one, and so they wanted to come to this one to at least get it before council. We had mentally ill kids in distress, MIKID, and they wanted $10,000 to do more group programs. Boys and Girls Club originally requested $30,000. It was talked about at our work session on March 21st, and they were comfortable with $15,000 since it's the first time we will have been giving them money. We had, the removable of uninhabitable homes in Sierra Vista, which is somewhat morphed, but removing dilapidated and slum and blight mobile homes in the Fry area, but this would be for anywhere. We had the question of Lynn Roberts Park doing some upgrades, but that was pulled. We had infrastructure in Fry Town Site coming from south of Denman down to Fry on Canyon, 1st, 2nd, and 5th Street. During the 21st, it looked like the 5th Street because there's been a lot of change in that area. They removed some dilapidated mobile homes. We had some construction going on, and that was a good location to continue the urban renewal in that area. We also discussed drainage, and so drainage has come up in that area also. And the recommendation is to do some drainage in the alley between 1st and 2nd before they ever get to the streets to help that. And then we called it a sub-project, but we did have an organization come in, and that was to request the curb gutter sidewalk. They no longer need streetlights. We had enough in our money, in this year's money, to put streetlights in the area. But so they came and talked about it, but it was always planned to be a city project.
Jennifer.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Can I just slow down just for 1 second? So I'm looking at the requested funding, and we said we have some more people who've shown up.
Mm-hmm.
So on table 1 of the 2017 annual action plan for CDGB, there's
Okay.
dollar amounts listed out: 80,000, 65,000, 75,000. I know what Boys and Girls Club is requesting. I remember from Tuesday what the city is requesting for the mobile home removal.
Correct.
Have those numbers changed? Because if I add all
They-
those up,
They have, it came up after we had the memo into Maria for council, and they went 15,000 for the mobile home
okay,
to do the pilot project, and that money will come in from the city projects where they can pull some off because they're still in the design phase. They always estimate high, and they think there will be $15,000 they can take.
okay, but if we take from the city, quote unquote, city projects, we're still sitting at around 250,000 based on these numbers, even if there's some that's drawn, plus what we said we're gonna do for Boys and Girls Club. So I'm just trying to figure out, am I off, or how much there's no numbers listed for the other ones that people are asking for, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, there is not. Easter Seal Blake's Foundation came in for 50,000, but they are aware that it wasn't a consideration in the suggestions for this time, but they're coming in. We did 30,000, or we went to 15,000 from the 30,000. Alley improvements, I haven't seen the numbers, but they broke it down thinking there's $80,000, and that is really the worst case scenario. And they think they'll be able to pull some of the 15,000 for the mobile home. And the same was also, because it was added late, would be the storm basin for Timothy Lane. And those are the worst case scenario numbers. We know we got to meet it in that 236, and they can design accordingly. So those were added at a later date as a need arose before we even had our money come in, but after we had our initial hearings.
Okay, and what about the mentally ill kids in distress? How much was
Well,
that
they
requested?
requested, we didn't vote to give it, or you didn't consider it to give money in this cycle,
Okay.
so that's where that stands. So the projects that are listed in the memo about recommended projects are the ones that would be considered. So, mentally ill kids in distress, they were called to show
Jennifer,
up
that's
also.
on page 5 on the document that's dated July 13th,
Yes, sir.
2017.
The summary of public comments.
Summary
Got
of
it.
public comments, okay. And that's the thing that upset me a little bit on Tuesday too, Chuck. I don't mind having discussions about making adjustments to the 15,000 for other things, but we need to start with one document to the council and say, here's what we've agreed on. This may be the change, and when we get briefed tonight, we need to let us know, as well as the public know, what specifically the items are, and that's part of what's causing, I'm sure, some of the issues with the questions that Mr. Mount asked. But bottom line is we should be being briefed off of, if that's the updated document. I don't see the program we discussed, unless I'm missing it. The program we discussed added 15,000 for
That's after the memo went in.
the memo?
Yes.
So what is the
That was-
so the question then, Mr. Patuchik, becomes, what is the current issue that what are the current projects we need to be able to tell the public tonight that we're going to vote on? And it needs to really be in one simple document. Is there a simple document
If you look
in our
at-
packet?
The draft annual plan has all of them in there
Understand, it has all of them in there.
that were requested.
That were requested.
And then in the memo, they put it in, but the 15,000 was actually considered in one of the, during the application period, because it was dilapidated, and it has come back again that it could be a good project to start as a pilot program. So that came in new. So unfortunately, it did not get in here because that was talked about after we did the memo.
Okay, so.
So I'm
what
sorry for the
what
confusion.
you're telling me tonight, and Mr. Patuchik, is on page 5, we have that chart, recommended projects, and based on our conversation on Tuesday, we have the $15,000 for the building or the home renovation potential project for,
Demolition.
and that equals what amount of money?
236,107.
It's still the
We'll pull,
236
we'll
point-
take the 15,000 from the other
I just wanna
projects
make
that
sure
still
everybody's
need to be
clear on that.
designed.
I'm not.
Number doesn't change.
Well, I'm not sure everybody's clear on exactly what's going on, especially the public that wasn't here. So that's my concern. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, and it jumped again. I was going to go through and talk about the other ones that we had and the ones that we couldn't fund. And then the two Timothy Lane Park, which was added, that came up after we had our initial public hearing and work session. It came up after to get funded. And then to do the alley, which is really part of the whole infrastructure we looked at from Canyon to Fifth Street. So we had two projects that came in that we could not fund. And one is the St. Vincent de Paul, who just wanted to change the lights in their building, and that's considered maintenance and it does not qualify. And the other one was Drum Circle. They had a different name, and I don't know where I put it, but they wanted $20,000 to buy drums and start a Drum Circle for Peace, which actually is eligible if they had their 501c3, which they did not. So that's where that stands. We are opening tonight. It is a public hearing. We need to decide on the projects, and then we will publish on the 19th the copy that the draft plan, and then the draft plan is eligible, well, is in the library, at City Hall, in community development, online. And this year, because HUD was so late in giving us our money, they changed it to 15-day public review instead of a 30-day public review. And that is by HUD decision. Then it comes back, we do a final hearing to vote to submit the application on the 10th of August.
Okay.
And then,
Yes, Mary.
Mr. Mayor, let me just wrap up and summarize. What you'll be voting on this evening are the recommendation based on your input on Tuesday for 5 specific projects that would be spent out of the city CDBG funds for the next year. And those include $15,000 for the Boys and Girls Club before and after school program scholarships, $75,000 for alley improvements between 1st and 2nd Streets in Fry Town Site, $66,107 for curb gutter, sidewalk, and street lighting in 5th Street, north right-of-way adjoining the eastern boundary of the Christian House Fellowship property, so it's approximately 750 linear feet. $65,000 to construct a stormwater basin and install landscape and park upgrades at Timothy Park in the Solgar neighborhood, and $15,000 for a new program that would incentivize the demolition of dilapidated homes or mobile homes in target areas that I also sent you a summary document on yesterday, better outlining the program. So the next step, as Ms. Thornton mentioned, is to open this up to the public, and but the recommendations and what you'll be voting on this evening are the projects that I just mentioned. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, Mr. Mayor.
Before I open up the public, any further questions for city manager, assistant city manager? Everybody knows what we're discussing?
I know that part.
Okay.
I still have a few questions about the mobile home thing, but I can wait till after.
Yeah, we can wait till we hear from the folks. Okay, if we may, could we have the representative from the Blake Foundation come forward, please?
Do we have to do this first?
Good evening. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
Take your time.
I know it's a little late in the game, but I did want to come and share with you all what we do at Easter Seals Blake Foundation. I am the office manager there. I've been there for 13 years. And I also facilitate our Parent Taught Play Group, which is what we requested funds for. We have in-home visiting programs for children birth to 3 and prenatal moms. We have family educators and parent educators that go into the homes and work with families on children's development. We do vision screenings, hearing screenings, and just give overall support for the families while we're there. Our Parent Taught Play Group has been running since 1995. We were initially started with once a week for an hour and a half, and the last couple of years we were able to expand it to 2 days a week. Our initial funding in the past has come from a portion from United Way, and at one point the Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse as well. We requested funds for extra coverage outside for our playground. Currently, it doesn't cover all of our equipment, so the slides get hot, and the climbing equipment, as well as resurfacing our ground outside. We currently have shredded tire, which isn't the easiest to keep clean, so we were looking to get a different type of resurface for that. But I wanted to let you guys talk a little bit about our Parent Taught Play Group. It's an hour and a half. It's free to the public. Anybody can call and make a reservation. We do limit it to 10 children. Parents come with their child, and We have age-appropriate developmental toys there for them. We have books. We do an activity. We sing and dance, which you would think I would be able to speak and be okay, but I can sing and dance with 3- and 4-year-olds. We do a little snack. Like I said, we do activities. It's a good opportunity for parents to come in and have that one-on-one time with their child. A lot of times we're at home and we're cooking dinner, the phone rings, or we're on our phone, and we don't have that time, that uninterrupted time to spend with our children and play with them. And I see kids playing with their parents and how much they enjoy having that time with them and using their imagination and just socializing with other children as well. We have children that might be a little delayed in their speech, and once they start socializing with other kids, they're talking, and it's great. It's wonderful. And it also gives us an opportunity to share our other programs and all the other services that we provide here to our community. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Do you have, at the top of your head, the number of people that you serve in the community, say on a monthly or annual basis?
Last year for playgroup, we had 75 families attend the playgroup. As far as all our other programs, our Parents as Teachers program, I believe, have over 100 families enrolled. Early Head Start has about 40 to 45 families enrolled. For our home visiting programs, we also have our Quality First program. We have coaches that go into the daycare centers and in-home care providers and provide them with guidance to get their centers and in-homes to the 5-star quality rating for Quality First.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Specifically with the funding that you're requesting for the project, it is a project, right? It's to get the playground surface and the extension done. So once it's done, it's done.
Yes.
Is that something that you guys can hold out for another year until the next round of CDGB?
I believe so, yes.
May I ask, and I'm not trying to probe too much here, but what was some of the factors that we didn't get your application in earlier? Just so we know, so maybe Jennifer can help work that all out with you.
Excuse me. The application was submitted, but they weren't able to attend the public hearing to talk about it. And we are limited because it's a social service, except it is construction, so we'd have to work it out to where they could use the funding. But it was one that wasn't considered at this time.
Was solely unconsidered because they couldn't make it to the meeting?
No. It was one of them. When you're making decisions, it's hard to make a decision for everything when there's a limited amount of money. And so it was decided that we would do other projects instead. So.
When you say we, is that?
Council discussed it at the March 21 work session.
And then how much were you asking for again? 50K?
45.
45?
One document said 50, one said 45, so I put 50 in the form.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I want to thank you very much for coming and seeing us, and I would hope that you'll be able to apply again next year.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to hear from the Boys and Girls Club. Mr. J.
Well, I'll be real quick. Can you guys hear me okay? I'll be real quick. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the club staff, club board, but most importantly, our kids. The funds, thank you for the consideration. The funds will go to making sure our kids have a great future and make sure we fulfill our mission. So if you guys have any questions for me, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions for Jay? Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Williams.
John Williams, I'd just like some clarification. I read in the paper that this $15,000 that's being, I guess, proposed to be added to the CDBG funds was being used for a specific property.
That's not correct. And
Okay.
that's one of the things we discussed specifically was it can't be used for a specific property, that we need to have a citywide project where people can apply. And I'll give you pull my copy of the draft so you can see that that's the case.
Oh, no, I take your word for it. But, so the $15,000 is to be set aside for future application by someone, and then the city will make a decision on whether it's a good project to do or not do. So that article in the paper was just really false.
Well, it was a little off. I wouldn't say part of it was okay. Part of the article was okay, but that part of the article wasn't accurate.
Well, fake news.
I'm not going to go there.
All right. Anyhow, that's all I was just curious about. I think it's a great thing to set aside funds. You guys have done a super job in cleaning up Fry Town site, and you need money to do it, so I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Now let's get back on track here. Okay. Now, are there any other discussion on item number 3?
I just have some questions
Okay.
about the mobile home piece.
Knock it out.
I do like what you guys sent yesterday, and I've spent more time last night reading about HUD and mobile home demolition via HUD than I care to admit. So when I was reading through it, I saw that the provisions for HUD were, it is absolutely allowed to go in there and do the demolition for something like that. And some of the restrictions, if I understand and I understood it correctly, was that the person who owns the property, if they receive CDGB funding to demo a building, they can't replace it with more than how many they demoed, but it could end up with less, correct? So if they demo 3, they can put in 3, or they can put in 2, or put in 1.
That's correct, sir.
Now, the other thing is that it says that if it's demoing a HUD mobile home, something that's already HUD, it requires HUD approval or permission to do that first. Are any of the ones that we're looking at, are they already been designated as HUD either sometime in the past?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mount, I highly doubt it, given the age of these structures.
Okay.
But I appreciate you pointing that out. Again, what you received was a framework of the program, and and Matt McLaughlin will be doing the research, and I will pass on to him that we'll want to put that stipulation in our procedures, that we would verify that they were not HUD.
It's still possible. It just requires
It's
HUD permission if you're going to destroy a previous HUD project.
We'll definitely do that.
That was my reading.
Absolutely.
So something that Ms. Calhoun mentioned yesterday that also was spelled out in those provisions that HUD had was that whatever goes in there to replace what is demoed, it must meet the low income threshold, i.e., 80% affordable, et cetera. With this particular use case, the people who brought it to us, and this is maybe where my confusion was at yesterday, they own the property, correct? Are they also the vendors of the homes?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mount, no. So the particular individual who was exploring this with the city does not own. They simply are an investor looking at a particular piece of property.
So they own the property.
Correct.
Okay, and then
So they could use, the only reason why Mr. McLaughlin reached out to Clayton Homes was to verify, is there a market in Sierra Vista for new manufactured homes? But whoever owns that piece of property, they are not obligated to use any particular contractor for their replacement homes, and the city would have zero investment in those new structures.
But we would have to go in and make sure that the buildings that are being acquired meet the threshold of low-income housing.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mount, the only thing that we will require is that they are a habitable home and they meet all of the code requirements. The 80% is for income. That is not about the structure, that's about the family income, and that qualification would happen through the Community Development Department.
I would ask for us to take a closer look, because there was some very specific language in there that said if you tear it down and you replace it, there's a value on that, specifically with mobile homes, that there's a dollar value associated with it that would qualify. And like I said, maybe it's my reading that was off, but
Okay.
What I'm concerned is if we knock down something that was traditionally low income, i.e. a trailer, and then they go out and get a $300,000 mobile home and put it in there, I don't know. I think that's why that provision is in there.
Okay.
So the last thing that I have is about the market study. So the council asked community development to go and do a market study to identify demand. We called, how many vendors did we call?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mount, we only have one mobile home vendor in all of Cochise County, and so that was the vendor who was contacted.
So And then my next question is for CDGB block grant money. The amount of money that we get every year is relatively the same, correct?
It has been to date, but there are proposals, as you know, in Congress to completely eliminate the program. So it's entirely possible that we will see changes in that funding level in the future. What this pilot program would do is not any sort of obligation to continue it in the future. That would be a council decision each year. It could continue, it could be reallocated to another project. There is no commitment that this is an ongoing program. It would be established as a one-year program, and we would report that information and the response and the use of those funds back to council, and then you could determine whether or not it was something worth moving forward with in the future.
Okay, so specifically with this year, when we vote, I assume we're all going to vote and approve this. When we start the program, is it open to whoever owns property for this to immediately apply, or is this already for the people who approach the city?
No, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mount. No, this would be a competitive program. It has not been pre-designated. It would be open. There are other property owners in the target areas who may also very well be interested in tapping into these resources. And so it will be open to all of those property owners. The fact that we simply had an interest is an indicator that we feel that this $15,000 would definitely be utilized for this program.
And my last question, I promise.
It's all right.
I plan on supporting this because I like the projects that are here, and I'm actually not really against this, but I want clarification.
Of course.
So the application process, it's our first time doing this. We talked about this on Tuesday. Ultimately, it's somebody in the city, and I don't need a specific name, but I assume somebody in the city is going to look at the application and make the choice. If we vote on this today, before the money or before the selection has taken place, can council have an opportunity to see the application and the process just to avoid any sort of perception or optics that there's going to be favoritism in the selection process?
Well, one of the,
Mayor?
you know, that may add addition, having the council ultimately put their fingers in the pie may,
Fair enough.
maybe
I
be an
agree.
issue. But again, I agree with you to the point that in the process that's been enumerated here, there needs to be a person or committee within the city that is specifically designated to make that decision.
Yes, sir.
And is it a decision, or is it a decision that comes to the council for a final? Is a recommendation comes to the city for a final recommendation, or is it this goes to the city manager for a final action? That needs to be outlined. Those procedures need to be outlined in wherever the document is.
Yes, sir.
And I'll
And-
correct myself. Yeah, I agree with that. I just want to see what the application
Certainly.
process is to
Exactly.
the ultimate conclusion. That's all I
Absolutely. And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we will be happy to share that with you. What you received was an outline of the framework of the program. There's Mr. McLaughlin will be doing a great deal of research, following up on HUD rules to make sure that the very specific procedures, requirements, and that kind of thing meet all of the HUD guidelines. And we'll build into the process exactly what that review is. But I will instruct Mr. McLaughlin to give the council a draft. We can post it in your reading room, and if you have any comments, we'd be happy to incorporate those into before it gets released. It'll probably take several months to wrap all of these documents up and refine the application process. But I will tell you this, one of the things that we are likely to do is find other communities that are already doing this. I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel if we don't have to do that, and chances are, if they've been doing it for a while, they already have pre-approved, HUD-approved policies, procedures, guidelines, and an application process, and we intend to make use of those. So, but we'll be glad to follow up with you, Mr. Mount.
Thank you all for your patience in my questioning.
If I could add one thing, it won't be even in a couple of months. Once we submit this August 15th, HUD has 45 days before they even approve the plan. So we won't even know if our annual action plan will be accepted. I don't know why it would never be accepted, but be accepted
But
until
we have time to get the program together, is what
Correct.
you're telling us. Okay, that's great, Jennifer. Any other further questions for Jennifer? Thank you, Jennifer. Any further discussion on this item?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I'm very pleased with the projects that have been chosen. I wasn't here for the original meeting. I was in Virginia watching in an Uber, watching live with my earpiece in of what was going on. But I'm very pleased with the projects and with the fact that we're integrating services this year in Boys and Girls Club to help them with their mission of helping kids in our community.
Anything else before I call the question? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now that item 3 is complete, I'll mention on item number 4, unless there's an objection from the council, I declare the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan open for a 15-day comment period, which means, folks, that we can accept comments electronically or at any of the future council meetings within the next 15 days, and we welcome your comments on our selections. With that being said, we'll move on to new business. Item number 5, Ms. Calhoun.
Again, I think the date is incorrect, or is that correct? It is the correct date. Oh, this is
Or for the
okay.
minutes.
Approval of, Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council regular meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2017 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions, corrections? And you got that correction tonight, the error, okay? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 6. Mrs. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2017-056, providing legislative findings and imposing a temporary moratorium on the collection of development fees as specified in Chapter 154 of the City Code of Ordinances, ending June 30th, 2019, and declaring an emergency be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Jacobs, may we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. As you know, during the budget process, the city manager indicated to you that he is recommending a 2-year moratorium on the collection of development fees, which are those fees that are one-time fees specifically designated for the construction of new projects, for new growth, or the repayment of debt for those capital projects that have been previously installed and have capacity. The city collects police, fire, transportation, and library, and no, not library anymore, parks and recreation fees. And the average home development permit or development fees are $3,226, and for an average 5,000 square foot retail space, it would cost about $20,000 in these development fees. The suspension of the development fees for 2 years would do 2 things. Number one, help facilitate economic growth, we hope, and incentivize investments in the city of Sierra Vista sooner rather than later during this period of time. And secondly, it also saves the general fund money by relieving the general fund from its obligation under your ordinance to contribute the 25% of that development fees, which has been a council policy decision for a number of years since the inception. And that amount, which is approximately $100,000 estimated for next fiscal year, has already been taken out of the budget. So your action tonight would implement what has already been incorporated into the budget. The reason for the emergency, the declaration of emergency, which is very unusual for council, is simply because as soon as you approve it this evening, no one will be applying for a building permit, knowing that they will be able to have this waiver, and because there's a 30-day requirement before a resolution approved by council goes into effect. And we don't want to hold up anyone who has plans for any new construction over the next 30 days. So with that, Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Jacobs. Any questions from Mrs. Jacobs?
I do have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Jacobs, would this be publicized anywhere but within our own ordinances? Is it public, not just our community public knowledge, but anywhere in the state or the country? Is it the knowledge that these fees have been put aside for 2 years?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calhoun, we will definitely make use of this information through our economic development efforts as well as our community development. We'll reach out to the realtors and all of our commercial brokers, as well as the Southeastern Arizona Contractors Association, and let folks know. Typically, if people are already looking at a new building, it's not something that all of a sudden, you decide, hey, to save $20,000 on a $3 million project, I think I'll, go ahead and do that right now. But we certainly will make use, especially ones that Mr. McLaughlin and his team have maybe been speaking with, and those who are contemplating development in the city of Sierra Vista. So we will use this information.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mrs. Jacobs. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to call to the public. We have one member of the public that would like to address us tonight, Mr. Newcomb. There he is.
In Bisbee, Arizona, there is a sign in between Safeway and the Pit that speaks about the ability to get services for joint replacement. We have people in this community that I know are using electronic devices that they point at people's joints that causes the fluids that are there in the knee to melt. And in the water we have calcium, and calcium builds under these kneecaps. Calcium builds in the kidneys and in the urinary tracts, gallstones, all this kind of stuff. I have even seen one of these people leaving a residence after having pointed that at me, and my knee had swollen up. Now, when you see that there are people being lured into financial gain for other people by things that are done to them, strange people, these are hugely criminal things that happen. They took out both my mother's knees. The only reason that nothing has happened to me is because I am constantly moving all the time so that my blood is circulating and nothing can deposit under my kneecaps or in my joints. Now, these are very criminal things, and I wonder, how is it that people can have access to such devices? Because I have seen this young one taking off with the thing over his shoulder. Now, where is the center of this that a young one has access to these things? Is it from Mexico? Because I have seen, the minorities have cause in their mind to want to hurt people. And I have seen them leaving. I have seen minorities leaving with pellet guns after firing them at me. I have had guns point. You have police who talk about tasering me. There are people who buzz from in the ear. We have a business called Cricket Communications that will sell cell phones that's making a joke of everyone having a buzz in their ear, because now the cell phones are buzzing everybody. From this building, when I'm working out in that place, I can pass gas and a siren goes off in the distance. There is a serious homeland security problem around here. You call yourselves an electronic proving ground, And that's what you have here. You have people who have electric eyes who can find out if you're looking at someone's butt or if you're looking at someone's wife. And then they run the game on you there. There are all kinds of things going on around here. These are problems. They're putting people in the hospital. I don't even know where the center of this, I keep trying to figure out where is the center of this. How do they have access to these kind of devices? Is it the women who are spinning everybody? And they can spin the Mexicans, and then the Mexicans can spin a boy and get the boy to do whatever he wants to do. Or a boy is very easy for a woman to get at and get him to do the same things. Because I have walked once from out there at the Charleston Cemetery where they were frying me from NASA so that I could only walk maybe 100 yards at a time and feel like I was being squashed like a bug. You have problems here. You have real serious problems here. Where the center of it is, I don't know. Is it your police that are doing it? I don't know. Is it the women? Is it the Mexicans? Is it the blacks? How do they have access to this, and what is their motivation? Because I know things are happening, and I know that your hospitals are busy with people who, in this day and age, compared to colonial days, the foods should not be making them sick, yet it is. And I'm pretty sure
Mr. Newcomb, your time has expired. I would ask you to conclude your remarks, please.
If you don't take care of your kids, a whole lot of people are going to expire, besides your windstorm.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb. We now go on to comments and requests of the council. Tonight, we'll start with Mrs. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment that the new welcome sign, I just think is fabulous, and driving in from Tucson and seeing it for the first time, driving into Sierra Vista the other night was just quite a joy, so I'm so happy that it's there. And I would also like to say hi to Abigail, who's in the audience. She's my niece from Mississippi, staying with me for a couple of weeks, and she's learning all about how the city works and what we do. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray. Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, welcome to Abigail. I'll rescue you next week. I also want to congratulate the Library and Leisure awardees. When I asked who were those high school students in the audience, I didn't realize that was staff. I think. But congratulations to all of you. Did Matthew leave already? And to Matthew too, for your the work that you're doing for us here in the city. I'm really excited about the Maker van, and hope to come out and visit that before you hit the road. Also, thanks to, I see visitors in the audience, and we're always happy to see citizens who come to the council meetings, bringing their children, kind of seeing government in action, and, well, somewhat in action. We had a fairly quiet meeting tonight, but thank you all for being here. Also, I just want to advertise a little bit for our city commissions. We have about 13 commissions. They are almost always available seats on the commissions. And if you look on the city page under city government, you'll see a listing of all of the commissions and boards that we have. And consider attending some of those commission meetings and seeing if it's something that may be of interest to you. And consider being a part of a commission. And that's all I have. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Calhoun. Mr. Blanchard.
I have nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Mrs. Wolf. Ms. Wolf, excuse me.
Thank you,
I did
Mr.
it
Mayor.
again.
I do want to echo Councilmember Gray's comments about the sign. I think it looks fantastic, and I'm really happy to see that it is finished. And I also really want to thank the work that the Parks and Rec Commission did on their recommendations for updating the park resolution. I really appreciate it, and I know that you guys put in a lot of time and effort, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Mr. Mount.
Yeah, I want to thank staff and council for the budget process and moving that along. And I think getting it pretty close to just being done with, especially the, at least consensus so far for the changing of the policy to give us a little bit more flexibility. I think that's something that is, it's hard to do, but I think it's worthwhile. I'm also glad with the CDGB block grants and the selection of the things that we're going to try to get funded to get some more improvements in the city. When we have declining revenues and we don't have a lot of options, it's good to have sources of revenue to us that we can use in a useful manner. But probably the big thing is the development fees, and I'm going to talk on that just for a second. That is such a big win for, I think, the businesses, the local businesses here. I was out talking to one of the local businesses earlier today that's going to benefit directly from this, and they're going to save tens and tens of thousands of dollars to go ahead and invest and revitalize and move into a certain part. And we were sitting around talking about that. And what I hope staff and people watching, and I know people on council, I think, are following this, is that their opinion on this was, this isn't just tens of thousands of dollars to save for profit. This is more money that they can put back into building a nicer facility to help be more competitive and attract more customers. And it really kind of hit home to what I think economic development is, providing competitive advantages for our local businesses to compete not just here, but regionally, sometimes nationally. Some things that I was thinking about as we were going through this is, and I'm not going to steal this from Ms. Calhoun because I think it's a great idea, we should market this everywhere as much as we can for as long as the program goes on, and try to convince people now to build and get established and get headquartered here in Sierra Vista. It's a great opportunity. And with that, I think it gives us another opportunity. When I was talking to this other company today, was it gives us as council the opportunity to see and work with staff on more development and really kind of see those rules and regulations and what we can do to improve those things. And really to focus on customer service aspect of us helping those businesses get up and along. So I think the development fees aren't something that we should ignore. I think that's a great move by staff, and I appreciate that. It's very good. And with that, I'm going to go on vacation, and I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Mount. Next, we go on to Mayor Pro Tem Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have to say ditto to everything that's been said before me. Congratulations to the library, leisure and library employees, and also congratulations to our finance staff. Great job. I did want to add a reminder that the Arizona Commission on African American Affairs will be hosting their commission meeting here in Sierra Vista City Hall next Thursday, July 20th. Their commission meeting will be from 2 to 4 p.m., and then there will be a town hall from 5 p.m. to about 7 p.m. that is open to the public, so feel free to come.
Thank you, Ms. Ash. I too want to thank Abigail for being here to help us keep her auntie under control. And I want to congratulate Executive Realty Incorporated on Fry Boulevard for 50 years of service to the community today. That's a great milestone. I believe we have a concert coming up on Saturday night now at 6:30 in the park, free concert, so everybody make sure you get there. Tomorrow morning early, we say goodbye to Major General Barrier and his wife Annie. I want to just officially thank them for being great leaders of Team Cochise and all the things they've done for the greater Sierra Vista community. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that Major General and Mrs. Walters will be the new commander. And when you get to see them or get a chance to meet them, please give them a warm Sierra Vista greeting. With that, I think we've covered everything. Gwen says there's a meet and greet with the council on the
July 20th.
July 20th at the Landmark Cafe. 8 to 10 in the morning, and she'll get more information out to you about that.
Check Facebook.
So, seeing nothing else before the council, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.